Welcome to the Happiness Minute. Our episode today is called The Art of Reconnecting with Yourself. It's easy to lose touch with who we are beneath the noise. In this episode, we explore how mindfulness can help us slow down, tune in, and return to our inner center. Today's guest is Alison Bale, a mindfulness teacher with over 20 years of experience in health and well-being. She originally trained in chiropractic and she spent 15 years in India, where she founded one of the country's first chiropractic clinics. Now based in the UK, Alison works with individuals and groups, particularly those living with long-term pain, guiding them to reconnect with themselves through mindfulness practices rooted in presence, patience, and compassion. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Happiness Minute. And we have a guest today who will talk about mindfulness and how to reconnect to ourselves. So, hi, Alison. How are you?
Hi, Anna. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
for inviting me here today.
So, Alison, first of all, before anything else, can you tell our listeners, our viewers, what you do?
I will indeed. I'm a mindfulness teacher. I'm based in the UK, but I've actually spent most of the last 15 years working in India. I originally came into healthcare training in chiropractic. So I've done a lot of work with people living with chronic pain and chronic ill health. And one of the things I came to realize is just how much those sort of long-term conditions leave people a bit kind of, I guess, disconnected between mind and body. And as I got older myself and had a few health challenges myself, I really wanted to look at how we, what I call how we reconnect with how we were always meant to be. And that's how I decided really to start bringing my own meditation practice into a more formal framework. And so I now focus on the mindfulness rather than the body work.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think like for our topic today is all about reconnecting, reconnect ourselves, and mindfulness definitely plays a big role in that. But for our listeners who don't know what mindfulness is, can you tell us more about it?
Yes, of course. It is one of those wonderful questions that I get asked so often, and I still feel I don't have an entirely coherent answer to, largely because for me, mindfulness is experiential.
Mhm.
It's something that you do, and it's not going to be entirely the same for each person. But the way I frame mindfulness is that it's about learning to be an observer. A lot of the things that we end up doing and thinking and feeling as human beings, we're on a bit of an automatic pilot. We're reacting to situations sometimes without always really knowing why we're reacting in that particular way. And a lot of our thinking and a lot of our reacting is habitual. What mindfulness encourages you to do is slow down and become more of an observer of your thoughts, an observer of your feelings, an observer of your emotions in a way that allows us to start being a lot more conscious about where are we putting our attention? Is the way we're spending our attention and our energy taking us in the direction that we actually want to go? Or is it keeping us stuck somewhere that we don't necessarily want to be? And this isn't necessarily about fixing a problem as such. Mindfulness is teaching. It's not therapy, although it, yeah, it can be very, very therapeutic, but it's essentially teaching us how to be more observant. And when you do that, you actually literally start to Well, we know you literally start to change the way the brain works, change the way the nervous system works. So it's ultimately it's a rebooting and rewiring for your mental well-being, which can have all sorts of repercussions for your general physical and mental health.
Because the thing is, like you mentioned something, touching on that, is you mentioned that mindfulness is also about slowing down,
Mm.
and being conscious, with things around you. So is that something to do with, will that help us reconnect with ourselves as well?
But very much so, I think. I mean, one of my own personal experiences was my practice was my tendency always to have my head down and to be rushing from one thing to the next, either from one appointment to the next or between one goal and the next. And almost to the point of literally and figuratively never stopping and living and looking up. So much so that I could pass people that I knew in the street and they could say hello to me and I wouldn't see them and I wouldn't hear them because in my head I was a woman on a mission going somewhere else. But what I began to realize is that what that meant, well, it meant it played out in two ways. One was that I always felt I had to be relentlessly productive, but nothing I ever did was ever enough. Nothing was enough. Um, but also a sense of I wasn't ever really enjoying where I was.
Mhm.
Didn't matter how nice it was, didn't matter how successful I wasn't actually taking the time to be grateful just for the moment in question. It's like life was endlessly hurtling past me. And it made me make a very conscious decision that no, I was actually going to slow down. Because I do think one of the issues we face today is life is, excuse me, trying to push us faster than we as human beings are intended to go. It's actually actively trying to make us process more information than we're designed to process. And that is contributing to a heightened sense of stress and anxiety for a lot of people. And for me, it was a conscious decision that I was going to slow down. I was going to look for the good things every day. I was going to literally and metaphorically look up. And I was going to be more accepting. And I think acceptance is a big thing in mindfulness. And it's not passive. It means, for example, in this context, that I accept that I have limited bandwidth, that I'm never going to be able to get everything done I want in a day. My to-do list is always going to be there. But I'm satisfied even if I just do one thing. And building a sense of completeness and contentedness in myself that I have on any given day, I've done my best and that's enough.
Well, you mentioned, because I'm actually thinking, like for myself as well, um, how would I know that I'm actually disconnected? You mentioned certain things that you decide, it was for you, it was like conscious already. But for someone like me, I'm always busy as well, and other people would be similar to my case. How do we, how do we know that we are actually totally disconnected now with ourselves? Are they
I,
signs?
Yeah, I think there can be a number of things. I mean, one of the things that came up for me was I started getting very angry about things, or very angry with people, quite irrationally, quite over the blue and out of the blue, and usually about things that, frankly, in retrospect, were entirely trivial. Um, but it was just a signal to me that something was not right about where I was. I mean, sometimes you have to get to a point of burnout. That's become a fashionable phrase.
Yes, yeah.
But when you've been carrying too much for too long in ways that don't fill you up, how can I describe this? We all have we all have things in our life that we have to do. We have things that kind of energize us and motivate us and get us excited. And we have things that drain us. And we all have some of both. But I think it's worth pondering in your own life. If you were to put everything down on two lists, these are the things that energize me, these are the things that drain me. How much
Yeah,
is there
yeah.
in the drain column and how much is there in the energized column? Because if there's too much in the drain column, you are going to get increasingly disconnected. I think on a subtle level, I think there's a sense of ease and contentedness when you are at some level connected with who you want to be and with where you're going. There's some quote from Gandhi about beliefs becoming thoughts, thoughts becoming words,
Oh,
words
yes, yeah.
becoming actions, etc. And when you're connected, all I can say is that it all hangs together. You're at peace with the effort that you make, and things do just feel a bit easier. And I think one of the things women in particular can ask themselves is, how much of my time is dedicated to meeting other people's needs? And what are the things I do that are just for me? Is the time that I put aside to meeting my needs? Do I even know what those needs are? Excuse me. Because one of the issues that came up for me was, I often didn't know what I was feeling. I would literally get overtaken by anger or whatever because I didn't see it coming, Anna. I didn't spot the subtler signs that I was not happy with something or getting irritated with something, all the subtler signs that would have allowed me to go, hang on, where's this coming from? What is it? What do I need? What do I need to do about it? I didn't spot any of the situations arising. I go from calm to furious
Yeah. And
at
sometimes I
warp
guess you
speed.
feel like sometimes I think you feel like sometimes you feel that maybe I don't know who I am anymore at one point. Did you feel that?
Very much so. One of the strangest things that happened for me was I actually fell out of love with chiropractic, and I never expected that to happen. That was a real, ooh, where's this come from? Because it was suddenly like having a big plank pulled straight from underneath me in my life, something that had been fundamental to who I was and what I did. And suddenly it was, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't who I am. And that's really quite dislocating. When we have that sense of we've lost sight of what's important to us, to the extent of losing sight of who we really are and what we really want, that's a major wake up call.
Then do you think then mindfulness can actually help us to reconnect with ourselves? Like, because like I said, when we're doing mindfulness, we're slowing down, we're being more conscious of our environment. Do you think that really helps?
It's helped me enormously. I think one of the things that mainly does is it gives you space to start to ask the questions that you perhaps, I'll say we tend to push to one side because they can be difficult to ask, but the questions around, okay, if I've lost sight of who I really want to be, what is it that I've stopped doing? Or what is it that I've done too much of? It really, I mentioned earlier about this automatic pilot that we have. And
Yes.
mindfulness is the opportunity to make that automatic pilot conscious. So, for example, I also realized when I started to get deeper into my own practice that not only did I find it really difficult to know what I was feeling, if somebody would say to me, so what are you feeling? I was, how do you feel? I'd be like, I don't know. It can also be really difficult to know what it is you're thinking because a lot of the thinking habits and patterns have been running for so long
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you almost don't know what they are.
Yeah.
They're there in the background like a constant noise, but you're not actually hearing it. And one of the things that helped me was when you start to just get into the habit of just sitting, right? You're just sitting. You're deliberately not doing anything to distract yourself. Firstly, you'll often find that actually just that is really quite uncomfortable. Can you sit with yourself and your own thoughts for like 5 minutes in a room?
Quite hard.
And how comfortable are you with that? Because that's a tell. That's a tell. If the answer is no, that's a tell about how disconnected you are from yourself. But when you stop the relentless cycle of doing, you create space for you to hear more clearly what it is you're thinking, for you to notice whether that thinking habit is something that you want to maintain. Because sometimes, thoughts are just thoughts.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to understand, but they're not real and they're not who we are. And yet we constantly believe them. We believe, as one of my teachers put it, the negative committee that lives in our head and needs to be told to sit down and shut up. It also, mindfulness practice, and there are lots of different ways to practice.
Oh yes, that would be my
It,
next question. What are those
yeah,
examples?
it, well, I'll get into that, but it also gives you an opportunity to just start to notice what you're feeling without the pressure to know what it means. That was the thing that I realized that I needed to take off myself was the pressure to understand, the pressure to really kind of know what something meant. It was enough to start to be aware of maybe a sense of heaviness, maybe a sense of pain, maybe a sense of tightness, usually in the heart area or front of the chest, the throat. It was enough to notice it. It was enough to observe it. I didn't have to know what it really meant or know what I wanted to do about it. In terms of ways to practice, I mean, everybody tends to associate meditation. And mindfulness meditation is a specific type of meditation where you learn to observe your own thoughts and feelings. And meditation is a really great practice for, well, I liken it to kind of keep fit for the brain. It's a really good way to train the skills, but it's not the only way to practice. You can do anything that you routinely do in a mindful way. So let's say, excuse me, you're getting dressed or you're brushing your teeth or you're doing some washing up. You can choose to do that activity, giving it your full and undivided attention and keeping your attention on getting the most from every single sensation, as opposed to what we normally do, which is if we're doing a routine activity, we'll be doing the activity, but our mind is probably somewhere else. It's on to
Yeah.
what have I got to do next, or what's the next job down the line, or what are we having for lunch, or what just happened an hour ago. Our mind will be somewhere else, but you can use an everyday event to bring your focus just to where you are. I mean, it's a very simple thing that we can all do right now. That's I invite all listeners just to have a sense of their feet on the floor. Just have a sense of your feet. Feel your feet. No need to have an opinion about your feet, but just notice them. And that act of noticing something that's always there, but you take it for granted and don't notice it normally. Excuse me. That's an act of mindfulness. And it can be as simple as just in the moment choosing to be conscious of where you are.
It's a good tip. Because sometimes when you are working, for example, you're always so busy, but sometimes you get really, really stressed, and also sometimes everything goes blank. But having like an example, you get your feet on the ground and put it there. It's like I always think maybe the analogy would be like an SOS, one thing that you can do to help you
Yeah.
take you out of the stressful situation. um is
So that's
that
something else that, yeah, that can be really, really useful, is just to shift your gaze. Um, the modern world has us spending a lot of time looking at things that are very close to us, looking at electronic gadgets and having them quite
yeah,
close to
that's
us.
right.
But naturally, we are designed to have a mix of close vision and distance vision, to be looking at things on the horizon. And one thing that I find really helpful is just to look up. So if you've been doing a lot of work looking at something that's quite close in, just lift your gaze. When you notice those kind of stress signals kicking off, maybe just stand up, step outside if you can, and look up. Just allow yourself a moment or two just to watch whatever's happening around you, but happening at a distance. Because again, that switching of distance, just that moving of your eyes, can be really powerful. And if that isn't enough, walk.
Well,
There's
yeah,
something about, yeah, there's something about the rhythmical right and left movement of the body, whether you're putting one foot in front of the other, or if you're taking an item and just passing it between your right and left hands across the center of your body. There's something about engaging right and left which reduces stress and reduces anxiety.
yeah. Well, I do believe that because I do practice mindfulness, but the way I practice is I walk most of the time.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, I live near I live in Edinburgh, and where we are, there's what we call the meadows. So it's like a nice
Mm,
place in there, and I'm near the hills. So every
mm.
now and again, if I really, really am so stressed, I would actually go out and walk for like at least 30 minutes and not think about anything else. In a way, that's how I practice mindfulness. Um, so that's how I
There-
do it.
there's a whole range of practices, some involving movement, some involving being still. But it all just comes down to giving something your full and undivided attention. And different things will work for different people, and different things will work for the same
Correct. Yeah.
person at different times. I know there are occasions when I actually need to go and do something physical and stop thinking. And my excuse me, my default would be to go to the gym or go for a walk or go for
Yeah.
a run.
Yeah.
There are times when we need to move, and there
Yeah.
are times when we need to sit. And it's not the same thing for each person every time. And also, one of the things I like about mindfulness is not only are there lots of ways to practice, but it encourages you to develop what's known as cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility is the ability to look at a given situation at any given time and decide what's right for you at that time without any sense of it has to be the same activity each time. It's about being skillful so that when you're presented with any kind of challenge, whether it's a challenge you've seen before or whether it's something completely new, you're able to bring a flexibility to your response. You're able to bring a sense that you have options, you have choices. Because we can get, when we've lived with something for a long time in particular, I think we can get quite stuck in the idea that we're just stuck with it, and there aren't any options, and we don't have any choices. And I don't think that's ever actually true. It's just something our mind tells us to keep us safe, because what we're familiar with is what we get comfortable with. And mindfulness actually gives you the skills to be curious about what your options
Yeah.
might be. And the more
Yes.
options you've got,
That is true.
um,
I do believe that.
yeah.
Yeah. Because after, like for my case, after a walk sometimes I have more ideas after coming back from it.
I have all my best breakthroughs when I'm running.
Really the same way? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I managed. I laughed at myself the other day because I was about to go out the house, and I don't know if listeners can relate, but my husband has this habit of asking me for decisions on things just as I'm about to go out the door, and my head is somewhere else entirely. And firstly, I managed to bring my mindfulness into play, and I just said, I need to think about it. And I was actually on my way to the gym. And what then happened in the next 40 minutes is I didn't think about the situation at all. And this is another tip for everyone. Very often, when we've got problems, we think that more thinking will solve them better.
Yeah.
And often it isn't the case. I didn't think about the situation at all. I just went and worked out. But oddly enough, when I came back, I not only felt calmer, but I knew what I wanted to do. And then I was then able to say clearly yes to this, no to that. And very often, a lot of people I'm sure will relate to this, is those situations where you're asked to do something or get involved in something. And if you're not careful, your body screams no and yes comes out of your mouth. And mindfulness encourages us to buy ourselves some time so that we actually say yes authentically and no authentically. And that is also part of reconnecting with yourself. Because it's easy to commit to too many things that don't leave you the energy to do what's important to you, or don't leave you the space you need. I mean, everybody's different, but I'm very much somebody who needs some quiet time and can't be engaging with other people all the time. And I don't see that as a problem. I just see it as me. But what I've learned is it means I need to kind of break down my weeks differently and ask less of myself so that I've got the time to recharge. So that then when I am doing something like this podcast, or I am with other people, or doing the other meetings that I've got today, I'm bringing my best me and my best energy and my best focus to that event.
Yeah. Okay, so I have two last questions. Now, this one question, it's I don't know if it's controversial or anything, but I'm actually thinking, because the way we live at the moment, the modern world, can mindfulness really coexist with our own ambitions, with the productivity? Can it really coexist with that, with our modern
I
world?
think I think absolutely. I think it's more essential than it's ever been. And I don't see any issue with it coexisting with ambition or coexisting with productivity. I mean, just to give a bit of an example of my own life, I worked in the corporate world to start with, got a job I wanted, and then realized it wasn't right for me. Little example of disconnection there. Um, Decided in my 30s to have a complete change of direction and training chiropractic. That was a big, ambitious upheaval.
It's quite big.
Mindfulness helped me navigate it. Um, just as a little example, when we make these big changes in life, one of the things I try to teach people is that if you really care about doing something, you're going to feel anxious sometimes. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to doubt yourself. You're going to wonder if you have the capacity or the value. And I carried a little note round with me that basically just said, every time there is forward movement, there is turbulence. And it was to remind me to be accepting that difficult emotions were going to come up and that it was okay. I didn't have to judge myself for it. And most importantly, that did not need to derail me from pursuing my ambitions, because it was normal for me to feel what I felt. It didn't mean I shouldn't be doing it, if that makes sense. So
That makes sense. That makes sense.
and I think on the productivity, I'm a great believer that we have to rethink how we define productivity.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was at an event in India, which was all about technology that was going to define our future. And I came out of the event really disillusioned, because every intervention was about how we could get people doing more and doing it faster. How we could get you managing with less sleep, for example, or napping instead of having a proper night's sleep. But I was like, yeah, but what about people in all this? What about people's health in all this? And so one of the things that really changed for me in a big way was this acceptance. I referred to it earlier, but it was an acceptance that I was always going to have a to-do list if I wasn't careful. That was bigger. I was always going to have eyes bigger than my belly. I was always going to be trying to do more than was actually feasible for who I was as a person and respecting what I needed in order to manage my energy and function well. Bear in mind that our brain's job is to keep us safe, Anna. And part of that means managing our internal energy so that we don't push ourselves so hard down the productivity ladder that we end up burning out anyway. It's mindfulness has taught me to be much more discerning about what I'm going to put my energy into. So my productivity becomes less a case of, how much can I get done? But it's more tuned towards, am I balancing what I want to do in a day? And am I making sure that there are enough things on my list that energize me rather than deplete me? And this is coming back to what we talked about connecting with yourself. If you're really connecting with yourself, you need a balance of things that
Yeah.
energize you and things that deplete you. And one of the ways I manage it is I have 7 things on my to-do list every day. I might get more than 7 things done, but I only have 7 things
That's
on
a
it. And they're all things that I can do that day. It may not mean completing tasks, but they're all about taking just one step, then the next step, then the next step. But the point is, 3 of them will be for my business. 3 of them will be for my work, but 3 of them will be other things that I have as obligations as a person. Okay? Whether it's making sure I do my mindfulness practice, or whether it's I need to go to the shops to buy X, or I need to pay this bill, or I need to sort out that piece of paperwork. There'll also be one thing on my list every day that's about my self-care, to make sure that that doesn't just get forgotten, that I'm doing the things that fill me up as well as the things that are obligations or priorities.
That's a very good tip, actually. List 7 things. Like, my to-do list is really long. But like you said, I recently have started to narrow it down and not put so much, because you get overwhelmed. And you're right. The way you do it, I think I'm gonna take that as well and put it in practice. Like, 3 things that's business, 3 things that's actually personal, and then another one is actually, to do um very important one that you need to do.
One of the things that really helped me is this idea that basically our time on earth is actually quite limited, Anna, and you'll never get everything done. And just coming back to acceptance and mindfulness, be accepting that essentially you're always going to have a to-do list that's potentially too big. All right. That's just how life is.
Mhm.
So it's important for your connection with yourself, that there is stuff on the list that gets prioritized that you do just for you. The writer Oliver Burkeman talks about the importance of wasting time. And what he means by this is, we all have things that we like doing that we do just for us. I know you and I have talked about this, Anna. We're both stitchers. We like to stitch.
Oh, yes, yes.
And that's something I just do just for me. There's no end game. I'm no great artist. I just do it for me. And I carve out a bit of time every day to make sure I do it. And that's part of
Yeah,
how I connect with me, is having some activities that are just for me.
that's true.
They're not for anybody else. And making sure that they get done rather than what our tendency is to do as human beings. There's certainly for a lot of women is to be very conscientious, very goal driven. And if you're not careful, the things that you do just for you fall off the end of the parapet, as it were. They're the things that don't get done. And what I'd encourage everyone to do is put those things back on the agenda, and if necessary, put them at the beginning of the day, not the end.
Mm. Okay, so my last question is, how would people connect with you? So if they want to know more about what you do, can you tell our listeners?
Well, you can find me on Instagram and on Facebook and on LinkedIn, depending on which of those are your favored platforms. And Anna, I'm going to make sure you've got my links so that you can
Yes,
let
please. Yeah.
listeners have those. I also have a website, and there's quite a lot of blogs on there, and I'm even on YouTube, although I'm only dabbling with that at the moment. So stalk me on whichever of those platforms works best for you. Um, and feel free to contact me through any of those platforms and ask me questions.
Okay,
And I do
that's
actually
good.
offer a on the website. There's a calendar link, and I do actually offer a complimentary chat anytime if somebody's got questions they want to ask me. It's no obligation. But I would suggest stalk me on your favorite social media platform first. See if you like what I write about. Ask me questions, make comments, DM me if you feel like it. Always happy to
Um,
listen.
cool. So I think that those are all my questions. So everyone, don't forget to like, subscribe, and listen to this episode. And until next time, see you. And thank you, Alison.
My
Bye.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Anna.